you know, how it was playing with televisual form and all this stuff. And I actually thought it was very cinematic. And I mean, I think, you know, there are a lot of things that play with television form. You know, Julian Clary, for instance, does as much as David Lynch is doing here. But I mean, I do like David Lynch.
So by and large, were you a bit disappointed then?
Well, I was, but of course I was disappointed because after all this hype, you know, you were going to be.
Julian Clary still has the edge.
I think so.
Yes. Paul, could I turn to you? You described Twin Peaks very eloquently as a Freudian cousin of Patent Place. As they say in the examinations. Discuss, please.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, it's fantastic television. And finally arriving tonight, I was both kind of excited and disappointed. Excited in the sense that it is fantastic television, and disappointed that there's so much. I mean, we're now joining in. And in a sense, it's something you want to find about on your own. It's something you want to discover on your own. And I think what's happened is that we've now reached a phenomenon of what Twin Peaks is, as opposed to what it is as television. And I can't wait for us to break through that moment. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, we can all settle down and just enjoy it for what it is. Fantastic television.
What about this Freudian cousin bit? I mean, what really...
I use Freudian in that sense because I don't really know what the word means. And in a funny sort of way, I felt when writing about Twin Peaks that I should use a kind of language to write about the show that Lynch uses to make television. That in a way, he's developing a very random, very kind of spontaneous language that makes it interesting television because no one has ever done that before. And in a way, it's very naive and it's very innocent as well as being very sophisticated. And I use Freudian because I don't know what the word means, and he uses a lot of things. He obviously doesn't know what he's doing either. Verity,
can you help us on this Freudian? Have you any suggestions?
I don't know that I can help you on the Freudian. I mean, I certainly think that it is like Patent Place in the sense that everybody is having an affair with everybody. There are wonderful surreal moments, like for example the moment where suddenly somebody comes in and says, the Norwegians are leaving, the Norwegians are leaving. You think, what has this got to do with it? But it works, and the confusions are not irritating. They simply are they are seductive, and you think, my goodness, it's surreal. I don't know what, I mean, I think it is Freudian in the sense it's about sex, and it's about what happens when you lift the lid off of any society, really. But it's no different. I mean, Patent Place was just like that. I was completely riveted by Patent Place when it was on, and I'll be completely riveted by this. For probably some of the same reasons.
It's kind of interesting, though, that the way we're all responding to Twin Peaks, we're all using cliches. It's amazing how Patent Place has become a cliche that we must use. I have no idea why.
Yes,
nor indeed Freudian, nor indeed, you know, it being a surreal Dallas. And yet, one of the great things that's happened is that these cliches have accumulated to contribute to the hype of Twin Peaks, and we all use them. And what do we really mean? I mean, I've never seen Patent Place, and I described it as being Patent Place. I have no idea what Patent Place is.
One of my favourite... It deals with cliches. In fact, it is actually dealing with cliches itself, and therefore that's why you relate it to other cliches.
Sorry,
I don't buy this idea that he doesn't know what he's doing, and that he's just a medium through which this stuff is conducted. I think this is a cop-out. I think he's very good at this, you know. And I mean, you know, I hate to bring up the P word, but I mean, we talk about sort of postmodern television. I think what's interesting here is that, you know, we all expect postmodern television to be fast, zappy, everything happening, and this is quite the opposite. He's just slowing everything right down. I mean, literally in the dream sequences where people's voices are slowed down. I think that's interesting. I think the soundtrack is interesting because I think that's something that is about television rather than film, you know, the sound. I think he does that, but he's very clever.
It is interesting that he tends to dwell, and yet so much seems to happen. And in a way, what's interesting as well is that us critics have the luxury of I've maybe watched the first episode 6 or 7 times, and the amount of things you notice the 6th or 7th time. Maybe only the Generation Game, but so much happens so quickly, and yet nothing seems to happen. And that again is why it's fantastic television.
But I was thinking about the Generation Game before I came, because I thought, you know, that's the context that we're looking at David Lynch, and where the Generation Game's TV's big idea. Of course, you're going to like David Lynch.
Being someone that loves cliches and indeed has a weight problem, one of my favourite cliches is the dark underbelly of American society. I mean, what exactly do you think is going on there when critics are resorting to those terms, Verity? I mean, do you see it as the dark underbelly of American society?
I don't think it's any more about American society. You could say it's about any society. I mean, you could go to Wimbledon and perhaps, if people were interested in seeing something set in Wimbledon, you could probably find the same things there.
Do you feel that it translates well then into the United Kingdom as a...
Well, I will watch it. What I think is interesting is that in America it was a phenomenon because it was on a commercial network, and yet in this country we're showing it on BBC2, which is the less commercial network of the two BBC channels. Why wasn't it on BBC1?
Actually, what they should have done, they should have shown it in 20-minute chunks at 1:30 and then repeated at 5:30,
Right,
5 days a week for, what, 6 months? And then maybe it would actually take it on its true flavour. We've put it in a kind of art context in the way BBC2 has done with Star Trek. It seems slightly absurd. This is just fantastic television. It's no more, no less. And in the sense, just being fantastic television is enough. The fact that we're now whipped in a kind of frenzy is, in a way, slightly taken away from what it is. You know?
Part of the frenzy is obviously congregated around the characters, and there are obviously some wonderful ones. I wonder, Suzanne, if you could take us through the Log Lady, the significance of that sort of character.
Well, I mean, I've only just seen it. I mean, I haven't watched it 6 or 7 times. God knows what the significance of her is. I mean, apparently, what Lynch said that he wrote that part for her years ago or something. I mean, and I don't care what it means, basically. I mean, I don't think it has to mean anything.
Oh, I care greatly what it means.
What does it mean for you then?
Well, I care so much that I don't care. You know, I care so intensely.
Well, I
I'm
just
indifferent.
naturally don't care.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Anybody could have fun with this series. That's the beauty of it. And what actually, there was a great piece in Today newspaper today when they got 12 average viewers who decided that, in fact, well, nothing happens. Well, what it's all about. And I kind of like that too, because, you know, anybody can get anything out of this show.
Yeah. American TV is notoriously a parasitic medium. Sequels, are we going to have cheap imitations? I was a teenage Twin Peaks, you know, fan or whatever. I mean, do you see that it's now creating a shift within the way that American television will view the continuous serial?
Well, it didn't. I think it didn't work all over America that well. I think it became a cult in certain places like Los Angeles and New York. I don't know whether it worked in Middle America that well. Although the good thing is they are doing a second series, which I think is quite brave of ABC, which was the network that commissioned it. Whether it'll change American television.
Will it change our eating habits, do you think? Paul?
Again, I just think that's where David Lynch was having a good time. And he was making television up. To a certain extent, he was improvising, I feel. He was making certain things up as he went along. So the night before, they did a certain sequence, and they had a damn good cherry pie. Blow me down if he didn't appear the next day. And I think, in a way, a lot of the soaps that apparently came after, in a way, were the prequel to you know, they will not necessarily be a sequel. They've been done already. You know, this is primitive. This is how it should have been done in the 50s, and everything else has come after.
It would be criminal to leave the discussion without asking the inevitable question, who does kill Laura Palmer? Suzanne, can you help us on that one? I
can't help you at all, and I also am a bit worried because I don't care.
Verity, any thoughts on who killed Laura Palmer?
I think it's one of those Norwegians, the ones that were leaving.
I think it was Kojak.
You think it was Kojak, definitely. Yeah. You seem to have a lot of interest in the FBI character, played by Kyle MacLachlan. Why?
I adore him. I think he's one of the sexiest things that's been on television since, or maybe Bruce himself, or even Bob Monkhouse. I just like the whole fact he seems so separated from the action. And the way, I mean, Verity was saying before that maybe that little thing he speaks into is in fact Diane, and there is no such person. Or maybe the little thing he speaks into killed Laura.
Thank you, Paul. Well, thanks very much indeed, Suzanne Moore, Verity Lambert, and Paul Morley. I can very much assure you that it was actually Billy Corkhill that murdered Laura Palmer. No one knows for certain who actually did kill Laura Palmer, although I suspect I know. The only thing we can be sure of in this enigmatic world is that The Late Show will be back tomorrow night. But in the meantime, we'll leave you with our own sneak preview of the Twin Peaks of the future, where the more things change, the more they stay the same. From me, good night.
Diane, I'm sitting in my office in the town of Twin Peaks.